Hello and welcome to the podcast at the card table, in which we discuss creation, practice, performance and history with the greatest minds in magic. Before we begin, I am incredibly excited to announce that this podcast is now brought to you by MAGICBOX, one of the UK's leading bricks and mortar magic shops, stocking everything from Murphy's, Penguin, Theory 11, Ellusionist and so much more. They have all of your magical needs covered, and with their price match guarantee, they'll never be beaten on price. Plus, as listeners of the podcast, you will receive 10% off your order when you use code PATCT at the checkout. That's PATCT. Check the link in the description below for more details, and without further ado, let's get on with the episode. As always, this is optimized for YouTube, so if you want to check out the annotated ERDNASE section in full, you can do. Otherwise, you're still getting 99% of the same content as usual, and I'll have all of this stuff that the guest mentions linked down below in the show notes. Today's guest is, as Michael Murray called him, Austria's answer to Derren Brown, a world-renowned mentalist from Vienna whose fascination with the human mind turned into a career that's captivated millions. From his TV series Magic Mushrooms to headlining major theatre stages and events all over the world, he uses a mixture of psychology, body language and suggestion to create unforgettable experiences. It is, of course, the incredible Harry Lucas. How are we doing today? How are you well?
I'm really well. Thanks for having me, Corey. How are you?
It's an absolute pleasure. Yeah, it's as I was saying
Likewise.
just before we hit record, it's been maybe 10, 12 years since we met. So it's nice to see you again. It's nice to have a little bit of a catch up and hopefully delve into some of the secrets of your incredible career.
Looking forward to it.
Find the skeletons in the closet. Or in the Vienna Magic Circle, which,
Yes.
I mean, for the people that have just tuned in, the background of Harry's surroundings is Vienna's Magic Circle headquarters, and it's absolutely stunning. He gave me a quick tour before, and it's just gorgeous. Like, the building is beautiful. So you guys are doing something right, and I feel like all of the UK Magic, other than the one in London, which is stunning, the little off branches, we need to pull our weight, and we need to make them look as beautiful as as the main headquarters are.
Well, welcome to the Magic Circle. And if you have the chance to come to Vienna, drop by.
Certainly, it is on my list. It's such a beautiful city. It's such a beautiful place. So we're going to quickly just hop into your origin story. We're going to take it all the way back to the very start when Harry was just a little boy, and we're going to ask, how did you get into magic, and why mentalism?
Well, it started really early. I got my first magic set at the age of 5. And I do remember the first trick that I did. And I think it was a wand out of a... You put a wand into a bottle and it would just raise all by itself.
Yeah.
So that was the first magic trick I ever did, and it was quite something. It ignited something in me. I don't know what, but it sparked an interest, and it was more playing than anything. I think at the age of 12, I started to do my own magic shows, just for kids in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And what you learn, what I've found by playing with that is that, there is a lot of psychology involved. And so I was more drawn towards that. I didn't know that there was anything remotely, there was anything that's called mentalism. I could never imagine myself being a mentalist, becoming a mentalist, because that was not on my radar. But looking back at it, there were some hints maybe. In school, I was very interested in biology, and there was a tiny little bit about human behavior and animal behavior. And there's a biologist called Konrad Lorenz. He's from Austria. He was a Nobel Prize winner, and he did some groundbreaking research with gray geese. And I had to do a talk about him. And it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating how animals behave. And I think this is also something that was interesting to me when it came to human behavior. So it was there. And then I think it was during university, I became quite bored with magic. It didn't make any sense to take out the silk and change the color of it. Why didn't you bring the other one in the first place? Why are you forgetful? Why? So it didn't make any sense. But I think this might touch on another question that we're going to go into later on. But then I discovered that there was a book by David Berglas, The Mind and Magic of David Berglas, and that changed everything completely. For the first time, I read that it's not about the magician, it's about the audience. And if you can turn the focus towards the audience, this is something that I was really interested in. So I think that was the turning point. And yeah.
Okay. So, sort of from those ages of 7 to 12, were you picking up other magic things and slowly progressing to obviously working in those shows, from getting that first magic set to the shows that you were doing? How were you progressing, and where from the age of 12 to obviously getting bored in university, did you still maintain magic up until that point? And then you sort of dropped off and then picked it back up?
Yes. So from 7 to 12, I bought another magic set because, it was for bigger boys. So imagine me buying a magic set at 8 that was suited for children from the age of 12. I was, I was a big boy. But by playing with these, there were Chinese rings, there were plastic rings in there. And I do remember that one of them broke. So I thought, I really like that. So how can you, can you repair it? Can you get a new set? Where can you get that? And I discovered that there was a magic shop in Vienna. It's called Zauberkingel. And if we can pan around, actually, we have the actual original sign of let me show you. Yeah, so it's here.
Wow.
Yeah, Zauberkingel. And it was founded in 1876. So, yeah, one of the oldest magic shops.
Very rich history of magic in Vienna, then.
Oh, yeah, it is. If you like, I can tell you a little bit about 19th century magic as well.
Certainly.
But let's go back to Zauberkingel, to the magic shop. So I went in there and I wanted to buy, a new set of plastic rings, Chinese rings, and they were very clever. They didn't sell me that, but they sold me a pack of cards. And it was a very new thing. And then I read in a book that there was a magic clubs. So, and there were magicians were meeting at a cafe, at a very famous cafe. So as a young boy, I went there and I wanted to perform, And the waiter said, "Very good, but please come back when the magicians are actually here." So I performed for the waiters there. And then I discovered that there was another magic club, and there was a meeting, and I went there, and it was a meeting for young magicians, for children who were interested in that. And I went there, and it hooked me even more. So I was part of a youth club at the Magic Club here in Vienna, until I took the test at the age of 17. And from 18 on, I was performing regularly in the oldest hotel in Vienna, at Hotel Stephanie. But still magic, it was just magic. But there were 6 tables, about 60 people, and we did that regularly. So I got the chance to perform.
And you're very quickly building up experience in a restaurant environment, especially when it comes to mentalism, as we mentioned before. Mentalism's constantly changing. You're constantly having to think on the spot of what's coming next and how you can incorporate things. And I think restaurant environments certainly lend a hand to that, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know whether the food's going to come out right now, and you're in the middle of a routine, and you need to be able to adapt and move. So I think that's definitely probably gave you a good step, would you say, when moving into that, understanding that the environment's ever changing.
Absolutely. And it also, people, there are different people at every table. So you need to adapt, you need to adjust, you need to listen, you learn to listen, what they have to say and how they react, and you want to incorporate them. So that was a good school for me.
Excellent. Well, let's get into knowing you a little bit more. We're going to go through our sort of quickfire section now, which, as I mentioned before, never ends up being quickfire, but we'll see how we get on. We're going to ask you a series of little questions to get to know you a little bit better, and then we'll delve more so into some of the incredible experiences that you've had thus far in your life. And I imagine there's many more to come as well. Our first question in the quickfire segment is, what is your favourite sleight? This doesn't necessarily have to be a card sleight. Obviously, you mentioned there when you were younger you picked up cards, but it could be something mentalism related, it could be something prop related. It is entirely up to you. What is your favourite sleight?
I thought quite a bit about this question, and although I had picked up cards, I don't think I'm any good with it. So it would have to be mentalism related, and without going into any details, I'm a big fan of pen and paper.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And
also,
I'm a big fan of origami. If you fold paper in a certain way, it looks really beautiful, and you get some insights into the shape of it and how that works. So I'm a big fan of that.
Certainly. I'm sure the aspiring mentalists at home will know exactly what we're talking about there. I'm sure the letters AN might be of...
Maybe.
Who knows? Incredible.
Yeah.
What is your favourite plot? Again, I assume this is going to be something mentalism related. Having seen a bunch of your work, what would you say, if you had to narrow it down to just one, would be your favourite plot? But again, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you do. It could be something that you enjoy watching as well.
I found that it's not a specific plot, but if it is a routine that involves the audience and not just being, just props, but if they are involved, if they are addressed, if they can be part in a meaningful way, this is something that I really enjoy, because all of a sudden it can become something that is totally unique to this performance. And if that happens, so much the better. People can go home with that experience. You should have been there, because that was awesome. And if you can create that kind of space for people to relax, for people to enjoy themselves, and if they can take part in a meaningful way, that's the way to go. So if it's possible, it's, as I said, it's not a plot, but it's something that has to do with the audience.
Right. Obviously, that is very evident in the stuff that you do. Later on in the annotated ERDNASE section, we're going to be checking out a little snippet from your TED talk in Vienna, and you can see very evidently that you very quickly build a good rapport with an audience, and you're interacting with them, and the full routine is sensational. It gets a lot of people involved in very meaningful ways, and it's not just think of a word, I'll tell you the word. It's stuff that's personable. It's stuff that means something to them, and it creates that sort of emotional reaction, and you get a very different experience from every person.
That's the goal. Yes, if I can achieve that, that's the goal. Also, I do remember Paul Daniels. I think he talked about it on Bravura, his legacy set. He was thinking about, he had many acts on his show on TV, and he said, if you watched it later on, you could see that they are slightly dated. They were built in a different era. And he said he never wanted to do that, as far as I remember. And And I took his advice. He always asked people about their names and their profession, and he was always interested in them. So it was always modern. It was always contemporary. It was always in the here and now. And I thought, if I can revolve my act, my performances around the audiences, there is no date that, expire, not an expiry date. It's always modern. It's always contemporary. It's always about the people in front of me. So that's what I wanted to do.
And as you say, because of how individual people are, it means every single experience, regardless of whether it's the same trick, the same routine, the same material, can seem totally different because you're riffing in the now with the information that you're getting, and the information that you're relaying out is always going to be completely different as well, which I think helps to create such a diverse set of routining, even though for the most part you're likely doing the same stuff.
Yeah. I always like to build a skeleton, like a structure, so I know where it's going. I know where I'm going with it, so I know that it has a good end. But in between, I like to riff with people. I like to see what they bring. If they don't bring anything, fine, we continue, we carry on. But if they do, it's so much better, and it's so much fun, and you can have real fun with people there, and it's fabulous.
Has there ever been a point where you've gone so far into riffing with somebody, you realise looking down at your watch, oh, we've gone a little further than we should have here, and you're starting to have to pluck little pieces out of the act to get to where you need to be a little bit faster because you've let yourself sort of flow with the audience?
That depends on the venue I'm in, and if there are other things coming on later on. But I do remember a certain performance, and I was hired in northern Germany. And that was very memorable because I was asked by a lady to come to northern Germany to perform for a company called Harry Lucas. And I thought, okay, good. And as it turned out, the company is actually called Harry Lucas. And I thought, okay. So if I come, we have 2 Harry Lucases present. And she said, no, actually there would be 4. I said, what? So you have the boss, the owner of the company, you have his dad, you have his son, and they all called Harry Lucas, and you.
No way.
So that was very funny. And I performed for them. And I did my usual act of, like 45 minutes. But later on, as I looked at the watch, it was 1 hour and 10 minutes. And we just had so much fun in between. And it was really remarkable. So sometimes you can just riff and have fun with them, and it makes it so much more relevant and unique.
Certainly. And I feel like an audience can certainly feel when you're doing that. They feel the raw nature of what you're doing. They feel that it's not scripted. You're not just following a set sort of guidelines. And having that skeleton framing to fall back on gives you that safe spot, but it allows you to open up those unique sort of interactions. And I think that then becomes more personable to the audience, and it allows you to really build a rapport with them and, make some beautiful memories for people too.
Exactly. That's my goal. I want to connect with people in a meaningful way and have fun.
I think we may already have the answer to the next question, but it might be something slightly different, or you may have some other honorable mentions. But what would you say is your favorite book within magic or mentalism? Obviously, you mentioned before the book that started it all. Would you say that's your favorite, or are there other books that you tend to find yourself going back to, or other books that have been sort of more prolific in changing the way that you work?
I mean, if it's down to one, which is impossible.
Yeah,
but
I'll give you what, say 3, and if one's slightly ahead of the other ones, that would be great.
How generous!
But
how generous, Corey!
if there's other honourable mentions too, we can allow that. But
well, for me, it has to be David Berglas, The Mind and Magic of David Berglas. On top of it, I later discovered that there were other books as well, which are more into mentalism. The 13 steps, obviously, and but Cassidy, of course. But I find that I love reading old books. It's amazing to read old books. It's like a time machine. I just finished reading a book by Hannussen. I don't know if you've heard of him. Look him up, Erik Jan Hannussen. He was from Vienna. He was a big charlatan. He was an opportunist, and he became Hitler's psychic.
Oh, okay.
And what makes it even more interesting, he was Jewish. And he predicted the Reichstagsbrand, the burning of a building. And people owed him a lot of money, from the SS back then. And they decided, he knows a lot of stuff, and we owe money to him. We know a way of how to get rid of him. And he found himself being shot near Berlin. So it was not a good end. But before he was famous, he wrote a book in 1918 about mind reading and telepathy and how it works, because I think he needed money. But in there, he writes it, as clearly as you can be from a performance perspective. He really wants you to learn that. He takes you literally by the hand and teaches you. So it's been a time traveling experience to go back into that time and read that. It's wonderful. If you read about Alexander, how he did it, how he structured his show, it's amazing. Or if you read about Maurice Vogel, again, wonderful performer. So I love reading old books.
Do you find, obviously, you've been doing your shows for a long, long time now, and do you find yourself adding in new little bits and pieces that you're pulling from books, or does it tend to just be more guidance and inspiration as opposed to new sort of performative pieces and things like that?
I think the latter. It's sometimes you find little nuances. Sometimes you find a sentence or a structure. Oh, he would do it before that. Okay, let me try it next time. If that changes the dynamic, if it changes the reaction, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it was part of that time, and it's okay, or the personality. Sometimes I can get inspired by just structure of a show. But if you find some gold in an old book, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's those little tidbits are game changers. Some books that I've read in the past, like if I just looked at the cover and the blurb and read sort of the effects that were in there, I'd probably go, this isn't for me. But having read through it and finding those little bits of advice or those little things that have really then gone on to change the stuff that I do and made a massive difference. I think, there's a lot to be found, even in old books, as you mentioned there. Like, people see old books often as outdated, especially in terms of methodology and techniques and things like that. But as you'll know, especially from a mentalist front, as you mentioned with pen and paper, you can't really beat the classics. I mean, they're classic for a reason. They've worked for this long because they work.
Absolutely. And if you think, Paul Daniels, I think he mentioned the most impressive mentalist he ever met was Maurice Vogel, and he was doing pen and paper stuff.
Yeah.
And if you are able to capture an audience's attention with, it's not about pen and paper, it's not about the method, it is about something else. And if you can learn that, it doesn't matter what kind of method you use. Sometimes I get the impression that we are very concerned with how a pencil is made, and we are thinking about what kind of wood is involved, and where do you get that wood from, and what kind of lead is it. and how is that made, and how is the process of. We're so concerned about making a pencil that we totally forget that there's a story to be told.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in the story.
Yeah, it's what's written in that lead that is important. It's the
Yeah.
person holding the pencil, not the pencil, not the technique.
Yeah.
And it is very easy coming from a position of knowing to get lost in those kinds of things, because you're constantly striving for the most sort of deceptive techniques and the most fluid, or the things that are quite often the easiest way of doing something, which isn't necessarily always the best. But I think, as you say, being able to use whatever method you want, but still getting an incredible story and an incredible reaction and an emotive sort of connection with somebody is so much more important than how you're sneaking a peek at their life.
Exactly. People are interested in people. So if you can play with that, if you can play with the people in front of you, if you take that opportunity, it's going to be so much more interesting. And I learned that I would say the hard way. The first time I was able to perform in a big theater was when I was asked to perform at a gala show, and we did, I think, 16 performances, so 6 and 10, in a theater in Vienna with 1,200 seat theater. And of course I said yes. I mean, come on. But I was quite young, and I had performed for maybe, stand up for maybe 60 people. And I thought, what's the difference? I mean, it can't be any different, right? I mean, there are people in front of me. Well, I learned the hard way the moment I stepped out when they asked me to come to rehearsal. And all of a sudden, I couldn't see anything because, they turned on the lights. And then I imagined that there were people, they were watching and they were judging. And I was a fish out of the water. I didn't know anything about stage at that point. So I thought, okay, I have to learn this. I really have to learn this. I've felt so uncomfortable, but I have to learn how to stand on stage and move on stage and speak. So I did that. And up until that point, I was very concerned about, where to put fingers on a deck of cards. And I thought, that doesn't help. Here on stage and nobody cares. So there must be something else that I need to learn. And that's where the fun is.
How can somebody, obviously the way you learned was very much just get involved. How do you think people can sort of build up to that? I know a lot of people, especially on a mentalist front, would like to work more so from the close-up into parlor and into theatre settings. How do you go about, or how did you go about working your way up through that? And obviously, practicing for larger crowds is difficult when you don't have larger crowds to perform for. So how did you go about sort of getting into that?
Well, I took the advice that Paul Daniels gave, and it was the best thing that I could have done. And he said it's a very brave thing to do, but ask a local actor or director to come and watch your act. And it doesn't have to do anything with magic. Just, find an experienced actor or actress and ask her or him to take a look. And they will give you feedback. And I do remember, actually, it was here many years ago. I was asking a guy, a very good friend now, Bernard Moog. He's an actor and he's a teacher, acting teacher as well. And I performed here. We met one afternoon and I performed the act. And I do remember the first question he had when I finished. He said, "Do you feel comfortable on stage, Harry?" And obviously I said yes, but in there it wasn't. I was hoping, help me, please get comfortable on stage, because it's an unnatural thing. to stand in front of other people and they judge you. They don't care. They mostly on your side. But back then I thought, they were judging me. So yeah, get an actor. Ask an actor to look at your act and get feedback.
I can imagine, especially coming from an actor or a director, that the advice is incredibly critical. And obviously it's going to be eye-opening because, as we've mentioned just before, a lot of your thought is, what does the routine look like? What is the method that I'm using? Whereas they're not looking at it from that perspective at all. They're looking at it from a performative perspective, and they're looking at it as, how do you come across to your audience? How comfortable do you look on stage? How are you enunciating and talking and presenting yourself? So I can imagine it's a very eye-opening experience when it comes to getting advice from people like that.
Totally. And we were very fortunate, and I say we because later on I had the opportunity to work on TV with a group called Magic Mushrooms. And Bernard was the director for our 2 stage shows.
Oh, no.
And Bernard became the director of my stage shows as well. So he's a dear friend, and he gave incredibly valuable feedback. And I do remember several points when we were rehearsing on stage or just playing, and he said, "Why behaving so strangely at that point?" And I said, "Well, it's the thing we'll have to do." I said, "Okay." So he wanted to get rid of that, because it's not necessary from a theatrical point of view, but you say it is necessary. And then you work your way around it. So that's fun.
Yeah, blending technique with theatricalities always, like jumping hurdles. You're constantly looking for ways to make it look more natural and not look so out of place, which is a lot of fun. It makes you really think about exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. Do you have a particular favorite performance that you've ever watched, whether it be in person or whether it be on TV? Is there anything that sort of comes to mind immediately of people that you've seen as a particularly enjoyable performance? Does it necessarily have to be Mentalism or Magic? It could just be something that you found enjoyable or sort of influential on what you do.
Well, there are several. Magic related and non-magic related. I think one of the highlights that it was an outstanding evening or night, I could say, was meeting David Berglas in 2016 in London. And we were at the same convention, and late at night he came to our table and we started chatting. And it was until, I think, about 5 a.m. He was sitting there talking and telling stories, and it was an incredible amount of time he spent with us. And in there, maybe you know Gary Dobson.
Yeah.
You probably do. He wanted to know something about a certain technique that we won't mention here. But how can I tell that? How can I say that? Maybe if a wizard chooses to use certain words,
yeah,
maybe that makes sense. So he wanted to use or have some insights into that technique, and Berglas said, "Well, everything is written in the book." He said, "Yeah, but maybe you can demonstrate." And then he started to demonstrate, and it was totally off the cuff. He said, "Do you have a deck of cards?" And it was a borrowed deck of cards. It was shuffled, and Gary made certain selections and decisions, and he ended up with one card. And then Berglas turned to Jay Wisdom. Do you remember him? Jay, he's a regular attendant at Minds as well. Jay was sitting there, and he said, "Stand up." And Jay stood up, and I said, "What's on your chair?" And he looked, and there was a card, and it was the same card. He was incredible. And what was even more incredible is that I think I was part of the method. And I thought, I did something just, I was just getting rid of things from the table because, I wanted to make space. And as I think I caught him glimpsing at something that I did. And I thought, are you going to use that? Are you actually going to use that right now? And he did. He did. And I thought he was almost 90. If you can be that sharp, let alone at that age, and use something that just happens in the moment, it's been absolutely incredible and inspiring.
Yeah, opportunities. If you see something, you notice something, taking that opportunity could be game changing. I can imagine going from reading that book at 17 to actually being sat with David was quite the experience. Quite
Absolutely.
takes you back to being young Harry again and going through
Absolutely.
that book.
The great thing was I took the actual book, The Mind and Magic of David Berglas, with me, and he signed it for me back then. And he asked, when did you get the book? And I said, well, when it came out. And he said, good. Because, the price increased quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it was quite expensive by now. I think it's quite expensive now.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah.
But
so that was
well worth it.
Totally. I mean, this was an incredible evening. And he didn't have to do that, and he did. So, and another experience was a couple of months later, I was coming to London as well. And I think it was at a movie premiere, and all of a sudden my phone rang and I, turned it off. And later on, I saw it was a number from the UK. I said, okay. So I called back. He said, David Berglas. I said, David Berglas has called me. The reason why he called was we were going to an event of Wayne Dobson's 60th birthday, I think it was, at the Magic Circle. And he invited me to come there, and he wanted to make sure that I knew the way. And I thought, how thoughtful, to call somebody from the UK just to make sure that you know the way there. So it was incredible. David was incredible.
It's those little things about people like that really make you remember exactly why they're known for who they are. Regardless of methods, regardless of all of the incredible work that you did, it's that personableness, it's that interaction, those incredible memories that make his legacy what it is.
Totally. And he's still an inspiration. So fantastic. I'd love to think of him. Absolutely. There are other performances as well, because you asked that were very inspiring. I think Alex McAleer was a big fan, or is a big fan of Eddie Izzard, and me too. I got a chance to see Eddie, I think must have been over 10 years ago in Vienna. And I was sitting in the second row, so I saw him very up close. And it was incredible because there are no boxes to hide behind. There's nothing to hide behind. There are, he's just creating stories in his head. And what I found really remarkable was how he turned the whole audience into mind readers. He invited all of them into his world, and he was creating and having fun. He did sketch comedy, but he played all the parts in the sketch. And what's really funny is when there are two people talking, and he plays all of them, and they talk fairly quickly, but all of a sudden the one guy talks with the other voice, with that guy's voice. And he says, where did you get your voice from? I said, I don't know. Never happened before. And it's amazing. It felt like a ventriloquism act, but there was no puppet. So very, very, very sharp, incredibly creative, and I was so blown away by his ability to hold an audience's attention just by standing on stage. And all he had was a handheld mic, and that was borrowed from the venue. So I thought, I want to do that. If I ever am able to hold an audience's attention like that, that will be the goal.
You seem to be doing that pretty well.
I don't know about that. I don't think I'm that funny, but
well, you certainly come across as funny and friendly, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Thank you. And then another comedian comes to mind, Jimmy Carr.
Yeah.
I also saw him at this venue in Vienna, and he did. It was a 2-part act. He was, I think, maybe 45 minutes or an hour of stand-up comedy. And the second one, he explained that there is a tradition in the UK called heckling, and people shout out things, mean things, or whatever they want, and he's going to respond. And the second half was just that. And what really, really inspired me about this was that he did callbacks. He referenced something that happened maybe half an hour ago. He remembered their name. He remembered everything. So while this was happening, he was creating an act that seemed to have structure, that seemed to have a depth to it. It was absolutely incredible. So being able to be in the here and now again was something that I found very, very inspiring.
It's that ability to be able to intake information and intake your surroundings, but still recall things from the past and then still think towards what's going to happen in front of you while still maintaining some sort of structure is just phenomenal. And I think the world of comedy alone, especially in stand-up and crowd work, we can take a lot of inspiration from crowd work and comedy, because as you say, there's nowhere to hide. You have a mic and that is it. Your own wit and
Yes.
whatever the audience come up with. And I think it would be incredibly fun to see a mentalist open up a room to heckles. I think that would be really, really funny.
Totally. I usually don't get heckled, not at all, because it's not in our culture here. Although I love it when it happens. And as it happens, I experienced that during the filming of TEDx Vienna.
Oh yeah, of course.
I got heckled, and it was amazing. I loved it.
Again, it's those unique interactions that make the routines and the experiences more personable, whether for better or for worse. But you're able to take that situation and reframe it and make it work for you, which is great.
Yeah, I love it.
We're going to flip this slightly on its head for a second, and then we'll bring it back around to being all nice and cheery. But I'm going to ask you, what is your magic industry gripe? I know this is a very British colloquial term, but what would you say doesn't sort of belong in the magic community, whether it's something you think that's overperformed or something that you think's negative that is currently happening in the magic community that you'd sort of like to bring to light? Or is the magic community in Vienna just perfect and we seem to be doing it wrong over here?
I can't really tell you a lot about the magic community in general because I'm not really part of it. What I can tell you is we are very few people here at the Magic Circle in Vienna, and lots of them are pros. So if you get feedback, you get valuable feedback. If we're working on routines, it's almost always, not almost, it's always valuable. And people speak from experience. So that is something that I really, really value here. If, I don't know about the other magic industry out there, but what I what I really love is reading old books by people who have actually performed these things.
Yeah.
So if you read Bogle, if you read Cassidy, it's not just every word, it's the space between each letter is filled with experience, and you just know they have done this so many times, and you kind of learn a lot from that. I miss that experience in some of the releases right now, and I wish people would take the time to actually perform their ideas for years and then come back and report. So I really value quality. So that's
I
the thing I
remember.
would say.
I can't remember who it was. It might have been Peter Nardi actually said in a podcast recently. A lot of I might be misquoting. It might not have been Peter, but I've been listening to a few podcasts with him on recently, so it's the first mind that springs to mind. Saying that all of the releases in sort of the olden days of Magic were from the working repertoires of professional magicians. They were the things that they were doing day to day that they'd worked tirelessly at. Whereas now there tends to be a lot of releases for the sake of releasing things. Like back then, magicians didn't need to release things to make money because their gigs were making money, so they didn't necessarily have to go out of their way to constantly be creating because that wasn't their priority. So it meant that the stuff that they were releasing was stuff that was hard worked and stuff that was really sort of thought through. Whereas now, a lot of things tend to seem to feel rushed through just for the sake of getting something out and putting it out there. If it's not necessarily well worked in, and you often find as you start looking deeper into it, you start thinking, wow, this is incredibly impractical for literally any environment other than the exact environment that they expect this to be performed in, which for most working magicians, especially like table hopping or something like that, where you need quick resets, or it doesn't really work practically.
Yeah, exactly. So you could just tell that something has been performed and certain things have been considered. You know, if you think about magic and angles, that's an issue. That's something you want to keep in mind. And not as much necessarily with mentalism, but sometimes it is. And you have to make sure that it works in everywhere you perform. So yeah, I think we have an issue of, or I wouldn't say issue, but it's a lot more quantity versus quality. Back then we had quality. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of quality.
Good. That's what we like to hear.
Good. Also, there's another thing. Excuse me. How perfect is this? I've recently watched several magicians, and what I can say is what really annoys me if people don't listen, if performers don't listen. If the audience gives you something and you are so in your own head that you are not able to respond to that.
Yeah.
And that annoys me. It really does, because it just shows that you are not here. You are someplace else. And I love when performers are, as I said, in the here and now.
Yeah, it gives a coldness. You're almost, as you say, ignoring the person, and at the end of the day, especially in mentalism, without a mind to read, it's not really a performance. So
not really.
you should be treating everyone with the respect that they deserve. And
yeah,
as you say, even if you have a very strict set of lines that you have to follow for your routining, there's still opening to have those interactions and to be able to be personable with the people that you're performing to.
Totally.
You evidently have had a lot of influences on what you do, whether it be the early magic stuff that you did or more recently the mentalism side of things. If I was to have you, again, narrow this down to say 5 of the most sort of influential people in your life, do you think you could get it down to, maybe with some honorable mentions? But yeah, who would you say were the most influential people in your career?
It's a good question. For magician, I would say Burglass for sure. Cassidy, Gary Kurtz, Darren, obviously. I remember seeing something Wicked This Way Comes, and I thought I knew something about mentalism. Didn't. So that was mind-blowing and game-changing. There is actually he used to be the president of the Magic Circle. I don't know if you know him. He's called Quickfire. He's an incredible guy. He's now in his 80s, and he does, for me, one of the best, if not the best, three-shell game. And I learned so much from him, even when I was not part of the Magic Circle yet. I saw him, I think one of the first times I saw him was at Magician's Ball in Vienna, and there were lots of stars flying in and performing on stage and close-up as well. And there was one guy who drew the most people. He had the biggest crowd around his table, and it was Kurt. And I thought, what does he do? Why are people so interested in what he does? And it was the three-shell game. He did the three-shell game, and he always asked people, so what do you think? Where do you think the P is? Where do you think it is? So he invited everybody to be part of this experience. And that's what drew people in. And, you know, he doesn't even know his stuff inside out. It's beyond that. He has decades of experience. He can do whatever he pleases, method-wise. So he's free to play with the audience. And that's what he does. And that's why he gets so fantastic reactions. So he was a big influence as well, because it taught me it's about them. It's about them being here. It's about them having the experience and allowing them the space. So totally non-mentalism related, but it was a huge influence. He is a huge influence.
Yeah, and you can certainly see that in your performances to date. That is something that you carry across everything that you do in putting the audience first. So it's evident.
Good. Good. Yeah, I like to do that. I love it when something, as I said, when something happens. And sometimes I don't have to do anything. You know, they do it for you, and you just watch, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I do remember, I think it was such a personal moment. I was performing for, I think it must have been a 70th birthday, something like that. I was hired to do a birthday party, and I didn't know anyone there. So I do something with the birthday child, you know, the 70-year-old lady. And it was about a personal moment. And I still remember, because I still get goosebumps from that. I asked her if she was able to share the special moment, and she said, "Yeah, you know, my son and his wife, they were trying to have a child for many, many years and didn't work out. But at one point, he came home, and there were some flowers on the table, and there was a little card, and I looked at it and said, yeah, what's the card?" And it wasn't just a card, it was a picture. It was a photo. And she said it was a photo of my grandchild, you know, in the belly. And she said, and now she's sitting over there. She's 18 years old. And as I heard that, I was, you know, she was standing next to me and she was telling that story. And I said, I thought, you know, theatrically, you have to close here. This doesn't get any better, but there's still things I need to do. But I still remember it. And it happened because I allowed for that space. And, you know, I do this kind of routine many times. sometimes it's not personal, but at that performance, it was very, very personal. And it sticks till this day.
I think mentalism, more so than magic, offers an opportunity for spectators to allow themselves to sort of be more emotive and sort of go back to their memories and think about the happy things and the sad things in their life, and it creates those emotional connections, which is why I think mentalism's probably one of, if not the strongest forms of magic in terms of connection.
Absolutely. If you take them seriously, if you do not, this is not my style. I don't ridicule anybody. I like to be inviting and welcoming, and if that's possible, and people, are willing to contribute in a meaningful way, as I said, these things happen, and they're very, very memorable.
Perfect. Just a quick interruption before we get into the next question. Obviously, with this podcast comes a ton of recommendations from guests of either books or tricks, and logically, I turn to MAGICBOX. Not only do they usually have exactly what I need, but I can get it the next day. Plus, Graham and the team really know their magic, so if I have any questions or queries about a product, they're ready to answer over the phone or email. And as a bonus for you listeners at home, you can also grab 10% off with the code PATCT. Just head to magicbox.uk.com and use the code at the checkout. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. Now back to the episode. Well, let's delve a little more into your performative nature. Obviously, a lot of the mentalism that you do is grounded in realism. It's grounded in telling the audience that you're sort of utilizing body language and suggestion and their attention to create these miracles on stage. Why did you make the decision to ground what you do in realism, to make it more realistic and seem like it's more achievable and possible? Because I know certainly a lot of people tend to go more down the sort of superhero-esque route in that they have special powers or they're getting the information from somewhere else. You ground it in real psychology and real things that have actually been studied. So why did you do that?
Why did I do that? It's a good question. And I don't think it was a conscious decision at the very beginning, but I found that I was gravitating towards that. I started to become interested when I was studying I was starting to become interested in NLP. And then I learned that it has its roots in hypnosis. So I read a lot of books about hypnosis by Milton Erickson, and it was not applicable to me. It was just way too... he was interested in therapy because that's what he did, and I was not interested in therapy. So I asked a friend of mine who is a magician and also a fantastic hypnotist if it was possible to learn any of that hypnosis stuff and the techniques in Austria, and he said, not really. All the people he knew, they had an esoteric background, and they wanted to teach you that as well. And I thought, I'm not interested in esoteric things when it comes to that. I was just interested in hypnotic techniques at that point. So he suggested to ask a guy called Anthony Jacquin from the UK. So, and I found out that he was at Blackpool. So I flew over and I met him at the Ruskin. And he said, oh, by the way, I have this new book called Reality is Plastic. So I bought it, and it was everything that I wanted. There was no esoteric baggage. It's just do this, do this, do this. So it was step by step. And so this is how I started. And later on, I studied hypnosis with Anthony and Freddie, his father. And I realized that if you do hypnosis and people are just having they're sitting there and they're having their eyes closed, they tend to communicate unconsciously. And there are certain movements that if you give them an idea and You ask them for an answer, but they don't talk. They communicate just with their body. You can pick up on those things. And I thought, hang on, that's been going on my whole life and I didn't realize it. How is that possible? So people do give themselves away with something, and I realized that we do. We just don't pay attention to it. And so that was really a magical experience, and I thought I'd like to do that. And I like to start my show with that because it brings everybody in to that moment. It forces me to be in the moment because I have to look for tells. And if I'm thinking about something else because I had a very stressful day, this is the routine I go to because I need to watch. I need to be there. I need to be present. And people they have the same experience, they want to know, what is he looking for? Okay. So maybe if I look even closer, maybe I can see as well. And sometimes people on stage are so expressive that I don't have to do anything. It's just very, very obvious what's going on. And so much the better. So this is why I went for that route, because it forces me to be in the present and to be in the moment, and it allows the audience to become interested as well.
I think it allows a level of relatability in that, obviously, because you're grounding it in these things that subconsciously every single person does, it means that everyone then relates in a way that they think, oh, of course, this could also happen to me. This could apply to me. Whereas those sort of supernatural-esque things automatically create a barrier between people's beliefs and what they actually think could be true. Whereas this sort of opens a level of relatability that the other sort of types of performance natures don't.
Absolutely. And also, I think it depends on the venue that you perform in. If you are performing in theater, that's fine. You're telling stories, that's fine. But I perform at corporate events, and this is usually, if you claim to be Superman or reading people's minds because, something out of this world happened, it's less for me. It's less believable. I think it's more believable if you're actually interested in people, and I am. So that's why I took that route.
Incredible. I think makes sense. Personally, I prefer that type of grounding. I think it creates a lot more interest and intrigue because, especially when people see it, they go, oh, okay, yeah, I understand what he was picking up on. And then they sort of go away and they're like, oh, I wonder if like this, and they pick up on little things that just make it more interesting and more relatable than, oh yeah, it must have just been the ghost of a Victorian girl telling him what it was. Like, that just then cuts off. That is the method. Dead.
Yes.
Like, whereas this creates intrigue, it creates a sense of mystery and wonder.
Absolutely.
Even though, I mean, a ghost child is also mysterious. But
totally. Yes. I mean, it serves several purposes, and one of them is to actually bring the audience in and make them interested. If you are performing in a theater, people come to see you, so there is a connection there from the beginning. Or your friends dragged you with them, so you're there because you want to see what's going on. But at corporate events, nobody cares. Nobody knows that you are even there. The organizer had this idea and thought it would be a good idea. So you kind of have to prove yourself very quickly. You have to, and by proof, I mean you have to show them that it's worth their while, and it's worth their interest, and it's worth their attention. And if you can do that, it's perfect.
I'm gonna jumble my question set around ever so slightly, just because I feel like this conversation has led perfectly into us discussing your TED Talk. So I'm going to hop into what is the annotated ERDNASE segment. If you're listening to this on the audio version of the podcast, obviously I'd advise tuning over to YouTube so you can see this. Otherwise, it will be cut out, and I'll leave a link somewhere in the show notes below where you can go check out the full performance. But we're going to quickly watch the first 2 minutes, and we're going to have a look at how you build a rapport with your audience and how you're creating the connections that you just mentioned there. So let's take a quick look at the first 2 minutes of your TED Talk.
Imagine you met a mind reader and he told you you could ask him one question about your present, the past, or your future. What would you ask? What would your question be? Hi, I'm Harry Lucas, and today is your chance. Because you see, when I look at you, I like to think of your life stories, of your dreams, of your hopes, of your ambitions, the things that you love, your passions, ideas worth spreading. And I know exactly why you came here, because you want to connect. And so do I. So in a moment, I'm going to put myself out there and connect with you. But before we start, everyone, would you please stand up? Raise your right hand and speak after me. Hereby I swear, publicly and solemnly, that I have prearranged nothing with Harry Lucas. That's me. That I'm not an actor or stooge, and that I'm not in cahoots with Harry Lucas, even if I wanted to. Can't believe you said that. Well, thank you very much. Sit down again. Fantastic. Great audience. So if you have any questions, anything that you want me to tell you about, now is the time to think. Don't worry, I'm not going to reveal your deepest, darkest secrets, unless it's really funny. So don't worry.
We're going to switch back over to our podcast view. I just want to leave it there because it creates a sense, hopefully, for you guys at home to want to go watch what happens next, which is some absolutely phenomenal mind reading from Harry. But it perfectly displays what you just said there about creating that rapport immediately with an audience. You use a lot of humor in your performances, which is strange for what is potentially a very emotional and very serious performing style. Why do you use humor to connect with an audience?
Because I want to.
Yep, that's a good enough reason. We'll end the question there.
Yes. Well, I started with the image of a mentalist being very serious and think of your question, and I'm going to tell you what you're thinking. And I thought it's just, in 2 minutes' time, it's going to be unbearable to watch if there is this overpowering figure, this Svengali-like figure. And I'm not the Svengali-like figure. I'm not the dominating figure. I'm not, I don't evoke fear in people. Well, sometimes, but not.
You sure?
But not really. Also, it's nice to bring people in and have a laugh. It's more me, and also I found it's more impressive if you come across as a normal human being, and then on top of that, you're able to read people's minds. So it has so many pros, and it allowed me to relax on stage. It allowed me to be more myself and to have fun with people, and then do the impressive stuff.
Yeah, comedy certainly has a way to relieve tension. It's something you find a lot, especially in a theatrical nature with the likes of Ghost Stories by Andy Nyman. There's a lot of humor in that used to release the tension after the tense build-ups and the scares. So it definitely creates a stark contrast between sort of the character you're portraying and these incredible things that you're doing, which is quite a strange thing to look at. You see this personable person doing these otherworldly things, and yeah, it's strange. You're both relatable and unrelatable at the same time.
Yeah, it's a theatrical choice, and it's a personal choice, and it creates intrigue, I think, and that's what we want. We want to keep. I mean, I want as a performer, I want to get their attention, and I want to keep their attention. And this is just a small segment that you see here in the TED Talk or TED performance rather. This used to be the very, very last segment of my show. So it was basically the encore. So I closed my show and then I came out again and performed this telepathy act as you see it here. So it was very strange for me and a huge gamble in a way, or I had this huge question because when people come to my show in the theater, they have seen me for about 90 minutes. So they know who I am. They know who this guy is. But here I didn't know. This was not, this is not my event. This is not my theater. This is not these are not my circumstances. So it was very, very different. And the question I had was, would they be willing to allow themselves to be open to that experience? And luckily they were. I didn't know that. I was hoping for it, but it worked out.
Good. Obviously, I can imagine the TED experience as a whole is probably very crazy in general. And to balance the crazy nature of that with a very off the cuff, let's say, performance of what you decided to do. There's a lot of riffing, there's a lot of things that are happening in the moment in terms of methodology and stuff happening in the works in the background. Obviously, we're not going to delve into what's actually going on, but as you mentioned, there's a lot of risk taking in that. Why did you choose to do that?
Had several reasons for that. When they came to me and asked if I was willing to perform there, and when I found out it was the beautiful Volkstheater in Vienna, they told me that their motto for the event was "out there." And I thought, okay, so if I'm putting myself out there, what would it be? Could it be something that is, that I could incorporate in my performance? And I thought, hang on, I do exactly that with that act. I'm putting myself out there. And they were so happy because I don't know how many times they've been at that venue, but they've only had the camera pointing at the stage. And for the first time, they were able to turn the cameras around and show the beautiful venue that they're having this event there. So they were happy. But it also meant that the auditorium had to be lit. It also meant that we had to have microphones in the audience, which meant that there were people necessary to go around in the auditorium. And their idea was, well, okay, so people stand up in that act and you talk with them. So we have one microphone. And I said, yeah, but you realize there are 1,000 people in the audience. Yeah, but could you tell us who you are going to address? And that was the day before. And I said, no, I can't. But may I suggest that, we have the stalls, which is quite big of a space. Can we have 2 people there with 2 microphones? so it wouldn't take as long for the usher to come there with a microphone. And can we have one microphone in the balcony? So, okay, we can do that. So there's so much going on, which was risky for me because I didn't know how it would turn out. And the day before, I was coming to rehearsal for tech rehearsal, because and everybody was taking the time. And then it was the end of the afternoon, and they said, we're going to wing it. And I said, no, we're not going to wing it. We're doing this tech rehearsal not for me. I know the act. I know what I'm going to do. I know the structure of it, but you don't know. So can we at least rehearse for the eventualities? What would happen if, somebody in the balcony area stands up? What would you do if somebody in the stalls area stands up? Where are the people with the microphones before? Where do they go? So that everybody knows what's going on and what to expect. If you just do that on the fly, that's not a good idea.
It's chaos.
Because it's going to be chaos, and it's going to be my video in the end. And I do remember, you remember Jorge Garcia, right? Jack,
yeah,
from Argentina. Very good friend of mine, unfortunately no longer with us. But I asked him, he did a TEDx in Buenos Aires, and I asked him, what should I pay attention to? What should I expect? And he said, forget everything, forget the audience. And remember that the video will last. It will be on the internet. This is what people will see. So I had that in mind as well. So it was a lot to juggle during that performance, because I had to direct the cameras, I had to direct the director, I had to work with the people whose minds I was reading, and keep the pace going. So whilst I was performing on stage.
It's a lot of extra things to think about when you're also trying to go through all of the stuff that's happening in your head as well. It's an awful lot to juggle. You mentioned before we started that there was a little bit of an interaction with the tech team towards the end of the performance as well, which was hilarious. If you wouldn't mind discussing the little mishap at the end.
Yes. There are not many light cues, none whatsoever, just light the stage and light the auditorium. But at the very end, usually at my act, where three people sit down simultaneously. So they sit down, and then usually it's a black. So all you have to do is push the button and the light goes out. And I told the guy behind the stage about 5 times, there are 3 people standing up. I answer their questions. They sit down. And once they sit down, all you do is push the button. You just push the button when they sit down. Push the button when they sit down. He said, yes. Yes. What didn't happen? So I was standing on stage and I thought, usually there's black now, but there isn't. So smile. That's what I did.
For the preceding 5 minutes.
Yes. And luckily the hosts came and did an interview after that. So, but yeah, it's those things. You have to work with those.
Yeah, it's the joys of live theatre.
It is.
Constantly things that you have to adapt to.
And the great thing is, nobody knows. They didn't know that. Nobody knows who watches that video that there is another way that was supposed to happen. So it's fine. It just is what it is.
Obviously, you've performed on many a major stage with your theatre tours and all the work that you've done. You've also done the likes of TED Vienna, corporate gigs. How do you adapt your material for those different types of performances? Obviously, as you mentioned earlier, the corporate performance space is totally different to that of a theatre show in which people are coming to see you and people already know you. You've mentioned this briefly before, but how specifically are you catering those things? Do you have specific acts or routines that you feel fit those environments better? Or is it just building that rapport that we mentioned there to get everybody into the same mindset as fast as you can, and then you can continue with what you're doing?
Yes, yes, and yes.
All of the above.
All of the above. Well, it depends on the venue. It depends on the event. It depends on the people. It depends on the day. If they have a day full of talks and I'm on at the evening, the dynamics are different. People are getting tired. So I need to get their attention even faster. So I'm choosing to perform things that are faster paced, and you leave maybe a routine out that is a little bit slower, so people keep their attention and they are with me. So there are a lot of things to consider, but usually there are certain routines that I do that I tend to do a lot, and if the corporation wants to do something specifically for that event, maybe they want to highlight a new product, or they want to present something specifically at that event, I can do that. I can cater to that as well.
Do you find yourself going into gigs and events with a set structure in mind, or are you changing it on the fly depending on how you're feeling? The audience is obviously getting to the venue and understanding the different parameters there. Are you changing it in the moment, or is it something that you have sort of 99% sort of set before you go into it?
I think it's a good thing to be informed before the event happens and get as much information as possible from the organizer. And then I usually build the act that I want to perform there, but you have to be open. Wasn't one of my finest hours, but the event as well. I was at a Christmas party, and it was 400 IT guys, and they chose to use that event to get really, really drunk.
The
Which was
perfect
great.
audience for mentalism.
Just the perfect audience. I mean, can't ask for a better attentive audience. And what really helped as well was that the kitchen took its time. So it was about maybe an hour, 1.5 hours later than intended. So people, they had time to go to the bar and order drinks, which meant that their attention wasn't where I wanted it to be. So I told the organizer, you realize we're later than was planned, and look at your employees. I don't know if they are as attentive as we want them to have. So maybe I'm just doing the first thing and then see how it goes. Are you okay with that? I said, yes. Okay, let's do that. And we did that. And you have to be able to adapt. I mean, if the atmosphere in the room doesn't work for you, or the audience isn't as attentive as you want them to be, you want to be professional and say, thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah.
That's fair. It's obviously in such an audience-centric performance. That's it. They need to be in the right frame of mind. They need to have the correct attentiveness, and they need to be able to react accordingly and do what you're asking them to do, as opposed to just giggling away and nudging their friends. So yeah, that's fair. That's to be expected.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to give people space, but if they can't hold that space any longer, it's good to move on.
Plus, again, as you say, nobody knows where the routine's going to go. Nobody knows what to expect. So it allows you to move and riff. And if somebody's not giving you everything that you need from that, then you can move on to the next person, and they're none the wiser that anything's gone wrong or anything's not happening as it should be.
Exactly.
You've obviously mentioned magic mushrooms, which is Uh, a very strange name in itself, but this is an incredible TV series that you did with 3 other magicians, if I'm correct in saying.
Yes.
How did this come about, and what is the process of creating a show like with multiple people? Because obviously if you're doing something on your own, like your theatre show, you have your input and you have what you want. But when you have 4 people all inputting their different ideas, there can be a lot of conflict and there can be a lot of friction. So how did it initially come about, and what was that process like for you?
Well, it started with several people. I think we used to be nine young guys, and we used to perform, here and there. And then the opportunity arose to perform on TV. So Tricky Nicky, who worked at the TV station, he wrote a concept, and with every concept in TV, probably it landed in a drawer. And what was really interesting was that the guy who was responsible for that said, "Nobody who should be interested in this magic thing. Nobody cares about this magic thing." Until they went to Montreux, I think, and it was the Golden Rose of Montreux. And there they saw an entry for the Golden Rose, and I think it was Monkey Magic from the UK.
Yeah.
And they thought, hang on, this is nominated. Maybe it isn't, that thing that nobody's interested in. We have that. So they took out the concept out of the drawer and contacted us, and it was, would you be able to do this? So we said, okay. And then we wrote the things together. We had lots of freedom. Basically, we wrote the script, we wrote the book. We had some incredible camera people who came from street comedy. There was a street comedy series with sketches on the street and pranks. So they were very flexible, fantastic camera people. We did a pilot and it was approved. And we went on from there. And it was, I think, 7 or 8 episodes plus the best of. And one episode was, I think, 25 minutes, something like that. So it was lots of material. And working together was fantastic because, two of the magic mushrooms are professional magicians here in the Magic Circle, and one is up in Linz. And we're still friends till this day, and sometimes we even perform together. It's so much fun.
And there was no conflicts of interest, no quarrels?
No, because it gave us, for the first time, it gave us the opportunity to work together.
Okay.
And it's, it's nice to perform something on your own, or maybe with a second performer. But if you have a third or a fourth, this opens possibilities. You can tell a story with 4 people instead of just with one person.
Yeah.
So we did that. We did segments with 4 performers, just to music, and we did that on stage as well. As I said, we did 2 stage shows then after the TV series. So it's full evening show, like more than 2 hours. And I do remember Bernard, the director I mentioned earlier, he said, "You're all alpha people. You want to be the star, but here, if somebody else does something, you look at them because it's disturbing if you move, even if you move. So you learn about focus and audience management when you are performing with 3 other people."
Would you say you were very similar in nature as to sort of what you had in terms of a vision for the series? Was it sort of a collaborative project in the sense that you all sort of saw what you wanted and that's sort of where you went towards?
We were even courage to become more of ourselves. It felt like a magic boy band in a way. They wanted to every character to be an individual. So I was the guy in the suit, and Nikki was the how do you say, the sporty guy, and then there was the guy with the hat, and then you had the magician Wolfgang Moser. So they wanted to carve out the personality, so it was more how do you say that? So it was easier to identify who it was when people watched it.
Okay. It's very strange for, especially in TV, to have so much flexibility and freedom to do what you want to do. Quite often, a lot of TV concepts are, this is exactly what we're after, and you need to fit into this box, whether you're fitting in it or not. So it must have been incredibly interesting to be able to run with your own ideas and your own identities and put those performances forwards in a way that is truly you guys.
Totally. I mean, it was so much freedom because we came up with the stories, we came up with the ideas, with the routines. And it also meant that, we didn't have any TV experience before that. At least I didn't have. And it was so interesting to see that some of the routines that we have done for many years, for live audience, wouldn't work as well on TV. It's just a different medium. It's a different thing. If you joke with people, the flow gets, there is no flow anymore. You want to get to the point. So it's a different way of looking at things and experience things. And how people are used to look at things. I think it has changed so much now, especially with YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all these videos. So we found out that it's different to perform live than performing on TV.
Do you have any particular fond memories or like favorite tricks or routines or sketches that you guys did on the show?
Well, there is a thing that we did, the four of us. It's called Frühstück, which is breakfast, which is for magicians, for performers having breakfast. So I can send you the link if you like.
Yeah, certainly. I'll pop it in the show notes.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That's the thing that came to mind.
Why does that one stand out so much?
Because it was the four of us, and I think we recorded it twice, something like that. Might have been, but we didn't have. People always think, well, you have tons of time and you film it how many times it takes, but not on TV.
You have a very strict timeline to follow and a very strict amount of takes you can make.
Yes. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It will not get shown, which is the good thing. But you get, maybe two. I don't think we've ever done 3 takes. So it's very, very quick.
That's very impressive to be able to get a lot of things in such few takes.
Yeah. Also, what you don't realize, because you only see the point of view that is shown, you don't see the other side. This is usually, this is a mob of people approaching you. If you are a spectator, there are like 10 or 12 people coming at you. With 2 cameras, microphones, and the director going, So this can be very intimidating. So what we have done, because we are not in America where everybody's very expressive and happy to do things, we approached them before without any cameras, and we said, we are filming this here. We are magicians. Would you like to see something? And then we shown them maybe 2 or 3 tricks, so they would know that this is something worth watching. And then we ask them, is it now okay for us to bring the cameras in? And then we show them. And it's just about easing them to the experience and not be intimidated that there are 10 or 12 people all of a sudden around you and you have to act natural and their camera is pointing at you and can be strange.
Is there anything in the show that didn't make it to recording that you hoped would, or any ideas that didn't work out?
Several. One of them you see, which is the library thing, which we had to shoot twice. And it had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with the lady who was chosen. Because, when you're going to a location, obviously you have to ask for permission that, you're able to record there, and it's for Austrian National Television. So the guy who's responsible there at the venue, he's prepared that there are a lot of people coming. And it usually says we need several people who are willing to participate. So the guy at the library told a woman, on Wednesday, the TV people are coming. So she had about a week to prepare that on Wednesday, the people are coming and I'm going to be on TV. And it's going to be, oh my God, they're on TV. I'm going to be on TV. So she worked herself up, which meant, she reacted like a robot.
Yeah.
And it was not usable. And I like to approach people then and there and ask if it's okay and make them feel at ease. And that's what we did. So we found a young student there then and there. And it's the second take you see. And she acted very natural and naturally. And that's what you see.
It allows those authentic responses. It allows those in-the-moment experiences as opposed to somebody who has a sort of preconceived notion of what's going to happen and how they should act and all of those things, which makes for very, as you say, robotic sort of responses.
Yeah. So it was a really fun experience. Very, very... very different to what that I was used to, but it's been great. Also, when do you get a chance to go on St. Stephen's Square, which is the main square in the middle of the very city center of Vienna, and do something there? And I had this vision, this tic-tac-toe thing, which you can look up as well. I had this vision. I wanted to play tic-tac-toe, and then I wanted the camera to zoom out and from above, and you just see St. Stephen's Square there, and me and the woman down there. I'm not going to give anything away, but watch that. And it was the idea of just that shot. And just asking them, is it okay if we did that? And they said, yep, we're going to ask for permission, and we got it. So, you don't get that opportunity very often.
If you had the opportunity to do TV again, is it something you'd be interested in doing again, or is it something that you sort of ticked off the list now and you're quite happy that you've done it, but it's something you'll leave?
I'm quite happy with the way it is now. If there are... If an opportunity arises, certainly. But I think it was a good opportunity back then. And I think the landscape in TV has changed so much, so it would be different.
That's fair. It is a very different medium nowadays with TV. Very, very different. We're going to move into a final segment before we have some closing questions, and that final segment is what we call the question deck, which is 52 different cards with 52 random questions. Some of these are magic related, some of these are more sort of prolific life questions. So it could be absolutely anything here. I don't know what's coming, you don't know what's coming. So you can call out stop, and then we'll either choose the card that it lands on or the card above. It's entirely up to you. So just whatever you'd like.
Stop.
There? Do you want to use this card or this one?
Yeah.
This one here?
Yeah, on your left hand.
So the question is, what's something people would be surprised to learn about you? Maybe not necessarily magic related, something completely different.
Ooh. I don't know if there would be. I picked up a hobby during the pandemic because I always wanted to learn an instrument. So I started to learn guitar, and that's what I'm doing when I'm not performing. I'm playing guitar, and it's quite difficult to do this and not to start at a very early age, but it's been so much fun, and so that would be the thing that I'm working on.
What inspiration do you take from music into magic and vice versa? What sort of things sort of cross the boundaries between the two?
Ooh, there's so many similarities. When I started, I asked a friend of mine who's a guitar teacher, and sometimes, we talk a lot about performing, obviously. And sometimes we don't know if we're talking about music or mentalism because it's the same. And when he performs with another fantastic musician who's a cellist, the interaction between both of them, and if there's a third guy who's a drummer, Daniel, it's amazing to watch. They are so in the moment, they're so connected with each other, and I wanted to bring that to my performances as well. Obviously, I have the challenge that nobody knows what I'm doing. We haven't played with each other, and they don't know what to expect. But I wanted to bring that feeling of being connected with an audience that they had when they played with each other. I wanted to bring that to my performance. So it's very inspiring. It's also about keeping people's attention. I've learned that it is important to play a very specific chord after another, so it still stays interesting. So you have to change, you have to surprise. So there are lots of similarities.
It's a beautiful way to look at magic, and as you mentioned there, I think inspiration can be found in everything that we do, whether it be watching TV, film, reading books, playing instruments, learning other hobbies. There are so many cross-sectional skills that go across everything that we do that can apply to everything.
Totally. There's another thing that might be interesting, because you're talking about creativity and being inspirational. I picked up a book that my guitar teacher, Philip Erasmus, suggested, and it's impossible to tell how fantastic it is. Have you heard of Rick Rubin?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, music producer. He's written a book called The Creative Act, and it's about being an artist. It's about creating things, and it's fantastic. I can recommend that.
I shall be adding it to the list. This podcast brings many a recommendation, and it is very quickly draining my bank account. Magic books and resources and other cool creative things tend to be very expensive.
But it's a good investment.
Exactly. That's what it is. It's an investment. But
yeah,
our parents don't see it that way. So somebody needs to have a conversation with them. We are going to close up with two small little questions. I say little questions. This is a very big question. What are your plans for the future, Harry?
Well, if somebody could tell me what the future is, well, keep doing what I'm doing. I've just realized that next year it's going to be 25 years that I'm doing this professionally.
Oh.
So I like to keep doing that. I like to connect with people. I like to see them react to the things. I like to have fun with people, so that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Do you have any
That's
shows
what I
or
like to do.
tours that the public can attend if they're over in Vienna? Anything that you'd like to promote?
Not in Vienna, but in Switzerland, actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to Zurich in August, on the 24th of August. I'm going to be performing a 70-minute version of my theater show in a theater called Close Theater, which is a fantastic venue where people are sitting really close, hence the title. And it's going to be fun. Very much looking forward to that.
There you go. If anybody's in Switzerland or the nearing area in August, please do get along and watch Harry. Do you have any big plans for this 25th anniversary?
Not really.
Just another year.
Just another year, yeah. Well, read books and continue to be inspired and come up with ideas.
Perfect. What or where can our listeners find you if they'd like to know more about what you're doing and keep up to date with your incredible adventures and the shows that you're putting on? Where can people find you?
Probably the easiest way would be the website, harrylucas.com, or you can follow me on social media, Facebook, and Instagram. It's harrylucas.com.
Perfect. We'll have all of those linked in the show notes. Well, it has been an absolutely phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for dedicating this time with us today and sharing some of your incredible experiences and hopefully inspiring others to go away and learn to take influence from other incredible performance styles and be able to riff and enjoy just getting to know their audience and getting to be more personable and creating connections. So thank you so much for taking the time with us. Hopefully you've enjoyed this as much as I have and the listeners as well.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you, Corey. It's been
Not a
fantastic.
problem.
And
I look forward to coming to Vienna soon, hopefully.
looking forward to seeing you.
Perfect. If you guys do want to check out the other podcasts, or if you've enjoyed this podcast, please do leave a review. Obviously a 5-star one. If you're on Apple or Spotify, it would be appreciated very much so. And we shall hopefully catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.